Hello everyone and welcome back to round 19 of Season 2 of our F125 My Team Career Mode. Yes, we're back this weekend here for the US Grand Prix out at the Circuit of the Americas. And of course we kickstart this one then, clearly, with some big news. McLaren are trying to counter our negotiations, trying to snatch Yuki Tsunoda away from us. And honestly, at the moment, I think we might let him have him. I'm not convinced we're going to keep Yuki on ready for next season. I want to try and hire Alexander Albon to the team as well. So, initial talks with Yuki have progressed well, and now we are ready to meet them in person to discuss next steps. Talks have not yet progressed enough for us to negotiate any reductions to Yuki's signing bonus. Although the contract window is open, our talks have not progressed far enough yet to make Yuki a formal offer. So, very, very interesting then. Despite the fact he is my current driver, we've just got to be a little bit careful that we could be losing him in the not too distant future. He is hoping for the 4th best car at the moment. That's going to be quite difficult. He's also hoping for a fan rating of 6. Again, that might be quite difficult. And he's also hoping to achieve 1 podium finish. Otherwise, the team must pay him 1.55 million. That should be attainable. We've scored podiums in both seasons we've done so far inside this game. But yeah, we might well be losing Yuki Tsunoda then by the end of the season as well. So just got to keep that in mind. We're going to view some potential counter offers. So he wants us to get podium finishes at the very least. We could try and give him like a low salary, and then hope that he takes that. But like I said, I'm just not convinced I want to keep him for next season. So I think we're going to hold off for now, and just obviously wait to see what happens. That's the one I am interested in. Alex Albon apparently now wants to engage in some bigger talks with the team as well. So if we can sign him, then I'm not too worried about losing Yuki ready for next season there. As you can see, he's hoping for a 3rd best team though on the grid, which is a little bit awkward, but everything else we should be able to achieve within the organisation as well. So hopefully they're going to be ready to send him off a contract.
Getting close to an alignment with their side now. There's still a long way to go, and obviously before we sign anything, we need to iron out the details. We still haven't begun formal contract talks. Still just preliminary discussion. I don't want to jinx it, so I'll let you know what happens.
Well, we have got to be very, very careful then, because of course we could end up in a scenario where we A, don't keep Yuki, and then B, aren't able to sign Alex Albon, and that would leave us in a lot of trouble as we prepare for Season 3. Difficult times at the moment then, as we head towards the USGP. Of course, if you missed out on the video that went live a few days ago from Singapore, I would highly recommend going back and checking it out. We managed to bag our 3rd podium of the year and the best result so far for the team as well, which I was rather happy with. So I guess we can't complain about that one. But yeah, COTA though, it is a sprint weekend of course, so plenty of racing action to sink our teeth into as well. Get yourself subscribed if you're new around here. We're trying to hit 150,000 subs on the channel. As well, obviously, if you want early access to all of the videos, make sure you click that join button as well. It costs just £1 a month. Timestamps will be linked in the description. Let's do this thing.
Well, it looks like we've been pipped to the post by another team. They've agreed a contract. It's all locked. Hopefully you weren't too set on them. I'm sorry it's not better news, but there are other options out there.
Well, there we go then. The pressure is mounting then, because Yuki Tsunoda has now signed with McLaren for next season as well. Then we've still got Alex Albon in the works. Paul Aaron desperately wants to join us as well, so it might not be the end of the world. Can we approach anybody else though before we get towards the end of the season? We could technically afford Oscar Piastri. That could be a very, very interesting one to go for. I don't know whether Sainz is going to be staying with McLaren ready for next season. He's a little bit too expensive. So I think, yeah, we're going to try and engage talks with Oscar Piastri then towards the end of the season. But yeah, plenty going on behind the scenes. We've just got to be really, really careful now.
It's a United States love affair with Formula One at the moment, so what a thrill for everyone today to see our drivers lapping COTA at full hot lap speed. It's the Circuit of the Americas, and it's qualifying.
Well, after a podium last weekend for our teammate Isaac Hadjar, he's all the way down in P18 at the moment in Sprint Q1. Really does seem to be a lot of ebbs and flows so far this season, not only kind of with the drivers, but also with the car performance and everything else. Let's not forget Tsunoda was able to score a point by himself. Obviously, the AI inside this game back at, I believe, was it Silverstone? I want to say it was Silverstone a little bit earlier on this season then. But yeah, I think we're going to need like a mid-32 if we want to make it out of Q1. But obviously, yeah, these tyres now already with a little bit of wear in them, so just got to be very, very careful as we throw the car through these first few corners. Just be really nice and tidy over that throttle there, and you can see you just got to make sure that you don't bounce off that sausage curb on the exit. Otherwise, it really, really throws the car off as well. Just got to try and manage the wheel spin out into the back straight. They're a little bit skittish at the rear of the vehicle once again. I just don't know how much we can attack. I think that's the problem here with the Circuit of the Americas. It feels like you can never really attack as much as you think you can for like a proper, you know, normal circuit, if you will. We do so many street circuits nowadays that you do have to approach differently. But 1.2 seconds up then on Isaac Hadjar by the end of Sector 2. That should hopefully be enough to see us into Q2 if we can keep it clean and tidy through these final couple of corners. Get the throttle down nice and tidy. Just don't make a mistake through these final couple of turns. A little bit safe there through the penultimate corner, but one more turn to navigate. Got to try and turn the nose in really early through there. A little bit of wheel spin. 31.0. We end up P8. Well, there we are then. George Russell fastest, just ahead of Max Verstappen, already dipping under 90 seconds around this circuit. But yeah, very, very happy with that then by the end of Sprint Q1. That gives us a lot of confidence into the rest of the weekend. 2 seconds quicker than Isaac Hadjar. Let's not forget last weekend, by the end of qualifying, he was 3.5 seconds quicker than Yuki. We're making our way then out into Q2. As long as we can just match the lap time we did in Q1, we should safely make it through and into that final session. As always, it looks like we're in the fight to kind of be best of the rest here, which is always what I want to see. Nice and tidy up in towards someone then. Say, we just got to get a clean lap on the board. If we don't make mistakes, clearly the car is still quite quick towards the end of the season. But we've got a tough few races coming up after this there, as, I mean, it does give you a lot of confidence through these first few turns. But it is just, yeah, this one corner, this is the real danger corner for us. It's just trying to keep it planted nice and tidy, which we will do. Hoping we can dip into the 1 minute 30s then. Just, you know, a small improvement as we make our way through Q2 there. It's just trying to leave the ERS on as we make our way up in towards those final couple of corners. Only down 1 gear that time. And the car still able to find some speed. 1 more corner to go. Again, really got to nail that inside curbing. But a 130.4, we're getting quicker and quicker. Well, as George Russell gets slower, everybody else seems to be getting quicker here towards the end of Q2. The McLarens almost now into the 128s. So the circuit is really ramping up towards the end of the session. Franco Colapinto, again, will make it into Q3 there. Alex Albon will be disappointed down in P13. That's the main reason we're driving as Yuki this weekend, is to try and get back ahead of Albon in the championship. Well, here we go then. We get 1 lap to try and prove what we're capable of on the soft compound tyre. Honestly, I think if we can go higher than Colapinto, that'll probably be an achievement by the end of qualifying. But rain apparently could arrive within the next couple of minutes as well. So I think everybody just trying to be a little risk off, you know, get the time on, obviously without the rain starting to fall around the venue. Well, I could just see a couple of spots there, but I think we're all good. Charles Leclerc 2018 Brazil vibes at the moment then. As just how quick can we attack these S's then. We're actually limited by the speed we bring into the corners through the first few. Just being nice and smooth on the steering. Don't scrub off any unnecessary speed. Down 1 gear that time through there. Just really try and get the car wedged over that inside curb. And then keep it inside track limits on the exit then. Little splash of battery as we plunge down the hill in towards turn 10. Probably could have gone down to 2nd gear through there, but we'll get the power down nicely on the exit and carry the speed up in towards Sector 3 then. Just trying to make sure we use a load of battery down this back straight. 210 miles an hour as we spot the 100-meter board down in towards this final sector of the lap. Then really attack the curbs once again. And look at that, we're running pretty competitively here, only a few tenths away from Charles Leclerc then, as we just try and keep the car nice and tidy through these twisty bits. Easy does it as we try and get on the loud pedal. Surely we're going to be on for a sub 130 by the end of this session, but who will it put us ahead of? As we are seeing a few more times coming in from other drivers. Oh, right on the limit of grip through that penultimate corner. Really attack the curbs through the final one. Up towards the line then. 130 flat. We go P9. Well, clearly Max Verstappen has come back with some anger towards the end of this season then. Pole position here for the USGP sprint race. Lando Norris will line up in P2 just ahead of George Russell, who finally looks like he's going to be able to get the jump on Charles Leclerc once again. Let's not forget how close that championship fight is. Every point counts between those two in the dying stages of the year.
It's wet here today and we're expecting those downpours to continue. This will make for a difficult sprint for all the teams. It's 10 to the left and 10 to the right. I'm not talking about a line dance, I'm talking about the corners here at the fantastic Circuit of the Americas. Overtaking opportunities into turn 1 and turn 12 at this anti-clockwise 3.6 mile track. But we may well see cars struggle to slow down here today as the wet weather interferes with the low-speed grip. Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's sprint. Max Verstappen put in a fantastic lap yesterday and he'll start from pole position. And Lando Norris lines up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Russell, Gasly, Charles Leclerc and Piastri, Sainz, Ocon, Tsunoda and Franco Colapinto, Antonelli, Stroll, Alex Albon and Crawford, Lawson, Doohan, Pepe Marti and Ollie Ben, Hadja, Aaron, Bortoletto and Nico Hülkenberg rounds off the grid. Which of these drivers will get pole position today? We'll soon find out.
Well, here we are then, looking up towards that infamous turn 1 here at the Circuit of the Americas. Always looks scarier than it actually ends up being around this venue, but tricky conditions then as we head into our sprint race today. We could see some mistakes coming out from other drivers. Wouldn't surprise me if we got a safety car or a red flag during this one then, but ready to go racing here today. We need to gain 1 place if we want to score a point in this sprint. The 5 red lights are on, the 5 red lights are out. That was not a long hold whatsoever, but we've done alright then. As I think we're going to have to try and take the outside line in towards turn 1. As Carlos Sainz immediately trying to look to get to the inside there. And look at the avenue we've found around the outside of 1, 2, and maybe even 3 cars through turn 1 then. Absolutely love to see it. And we will move straight up into P6 there. But Sainz, want to try and come back around my outside. Or just about give him a squeeze there on the exit of the corner and hang on to the position then. So doing a pretty good job at the start and immediately just trying to kind of settle down and get into a groove here. Max Verstappen doing what Max Verstappen does best, which is basically Sebastian Vettel's old playbook of try and get the lead at the start and run away as fast as you can on lap 1 then. But obviously we've seen a couple of races with the new patch. I did the Miami Grand Prix over on Matsumoto Gameplay a few days ago. This circuit, the wet weather even inside F125 is hopefully now, I mean the AI is still very, very good, as you can see, but hopefully now we're going to have a bit of a better fighting chance against them around a lot more venues inside this game. But honestly, I think for us sensibly, if we can just hang on to P6 in this sprint race, I'll be quite happy with it. Not saying that's anywhere near guaranteed, but hopefully we can just settle down into our rhythm. Well, this is meant to be the only wet session of the weekend then, so I've not really set up the car to be very, very good in the rain, or at least not optimised for it. And well, you can already see how much we're struggling there. Carlos Sainz will get down the inside at turn 1 and kind of make light work of me as Charles Leclerc already 3 seconds up the road then by the start of lap 3. So really, really struggling here we are. We're not causing a huge strain, but we're definitely slowing down a few separate drivers as, well, we've got Oscar Piastri right behind me. From a pure psychology point of view, it would be probably in our best interest to let him by if we want to try and sign him ready for next season. Not sure what's going on with him and Mercedes, but I like the fact he's potentially available. We've got yellows, Lando Norris breaking down. So disappointment then for Lando Norris, who's pulling over to the wayside, I believe. Has he got a puncture? I think that might just be a puncture then. on the Ferrari. So that is utterly bizarre here to get one of those on just the third lap of the Grand Prix. So very, very unlucky for Lando Norris then, as can we defend from Oscar Piastri back up the hill into turn 1. I mean, look how much later on the brakes the AI are able to go. But again, we'll get the elbows out. I mean, we just cannot do anything against Oscar Piastri right now. All I can try and do is just force him over onto a compromised line. But you can see how much time we're losing to everybody else further up the road. Just trying to hang with the Mercedes man there as again... Oh, he does just so much earlier on the throttle. I mean, we can get the elbows out. We can try to defend, but... Again, the AI, I know I mentioned it in the video we did Wednesday, where I kind of spoke about the things EA need to change on this game. This is easily the biggest one.
Okay, and that's a red flag.
Oh, I think Leclerc binned it. No, Verstappen binned it. Well, there we go then. That makes our life a little bit easier. Verstappen making a mistake then down at turn 1. And, well, it means we've just ticked off a couple of extra laps then in this GP.
Okay, this is essentially a free stop. So let's think very carefully about our strategy for the rest of this race.
Very simple. We're going to be sticking to the intermediates then. But with 3 laps to go, can we cause a little bit of a surprise?
Let's go.
5 red lights are back on. It's going to be lights out, and away we go then as well. Leclerc immediately tries to cover off from Carlos Sainz. Look at Piastri! Where did he get that run from? In towards turn 1. We're going to immediately dive him though, as everybody sensing an opportunity down in that first corner. Jack Doohan now is retired.
They're retiring from the race.
So no idea what's going on then off of this restart, but we are now up at a P4. Verstappen's done a pretty good job recovering up the order. Leclerc's gone as well. So what on earth has happened off of this restart? And, well, if it was any earlier in the GP, I would have thought we'd end up with a safety car there. But, yeah, Charles Leclerc, Jack Doohan both out then up at turn 1. I think Doohan's was simply a mechanical failure. I don't know whether Charles Leclerc's was the same. I think that might have been why he pulled over to the inside of the circuit so early. But can Verstappen try and reclaim the lead from George Russell in these dying stages? Could we suddenly hang on for a P4 finish in this sprint race then? It's just trying to capitalise on every opportunity that gets sent our way. Oscar Piastri again having a look to the outside, sorry. And again, we'll just get the elbows out. Oh, here we go. Esteban Ocon now and Oscar Piastri both sensing an opportunity to try and snooker away a few extra points in this sprint race then. And we're going to leave them to hopefully battle with each other. What I'm trying to do, though, late on is actually leave the car in no battery usage through the S's. Helps us manage the wheel spin.
The car ahead, 4.6 seconds.
And also, of course, allows us to charge up the pack, so we've got a little bit more defence by the time we get out onto that back straight as well. That's going to be the real danger corner. And we can see Piastri, yeah, really struggling to kind of stick with us when he's got Esteban Ocon breathing down his neck. Those two, of course, could have been teammates just a couple of years ago. But Verstappen, unable to get back to George Russell. It might be a critical win for the Mercedes man here, as obviously with Charles Leclerc out of the GP, he needs to score every point he possibly can, because it looked like all the momentum was with Ferrari towards the end of the year. This weekend, though, might just be the buffer that George Russell needs towards the end of the campaign. It's just trying to thread our car through these final few corners. We've had a really good string of high-performing races, if you exclude Baku a couple of weekends ago, but just trying to maximise the results we can get towards the end of the season here through the final corners here of the USGP sprint race. We've certainly not had the pace for it, but I am not going to complain with a P4 finish. Good solid points on the board, and it gives us a lot of confidence into the rest of the weekend. Well, there we are. George Russell from third on the grid will take the sprint victory today on a weekend where it really hasn't looked like Mercedes will have had the pace to compete. Max Verstappen, he'll be annoyed with the mistake he made finishing in P2, just ahead of Gasly and ourselves there. Oscar Piastri, Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz, and Antonelli, Kimi Antonelli. Great job by him there to pick up a point at the end of the sprint race. Charles Leclerc, Jack Doohan, both failing to see the checkered flag. What does that do to our World Championship? Well, it means now Russell 49 clear of Charlie Boy there, as Lando Norris still in third. Max Verstappen trying to make a late season resurgence, but we are now just 3 points back from Alex Albon as well then towards the end of the campaign. Gasly now 13 ahead of Esteban Ocon as well in the Battle of the French. But anyway, let's move into the real points ready for the Grand Prix.
It's a United States love affair with Formula One at the moment, so what a thrill for everyone today to see our drivers lapping COTA at full hot lap speed. It's the Circuit of the Americas, and it's qualifying.
Well, maybe this is a stroke of genius, maybe it's more likely a stroke of stupidity, but heading out then into Q1, I'm actually going to try and do a banker on the hard compounded tyre here as Carlos Sainz immediately dips down into the 129s. Of course, once again, I'm hoping that we can make Q3. I'm hoping that we can pick up a few points here. But hopefully this will just give us a little bit of data as well as to how the hard tyres are going to cope in the GP, of course. I would expect this season, Texas last year was a tight 2-stop. As in, the 1-stop was probably the quicker way to go. So I'm expecting this year we should be able to stretch it if we go medium and then over to the hards. But yeah, I mean, maybe by doing a couple laps on our hard tyres, I might screw myself over a little bit. But you never know. Safety cars, things like that. As we saw in the sprint race, anything can happen here. But let's just try and get a first lap on the board. The main goal is qualify well. Our first lap then, this hasn't felt too bad, and obviously it should give us a little bit of time to chase when we head back out there on the soft tyres, if I need to head back out there on the soft compound tyre. A 31.8. That's really annoying. Had we gone inside the top 10, I would have felt confident we'd see Q2. Now I'm not so sure. And there we go then. Lando Norris fastest in Q1, just ahead of those McLaren cars. So they have really made a very good resurgence over the course of the year. Once again, Mercedes seem to be struggling on one lap pace there. But both myself and Isaac Hajar squeak by. And into Q2, we surely are going to make Q3. Well, first run then is going to be done on that scrub set of soft compound tyres that we used in Q1. But they still feel pretty good. As we make our way through the first couple of corners, maybe we could just immediately set a time good enough to see us into Q3. We're trying some risky strategies this weekend, but when you're trying to attack, you know, against some of those bigger teams, that's exactly what you got to try and do. Play the game differently to try and give myself a bit of an edge. It's high risk, but it can be high reward. The tyres definitely just starting to give up a little bit in towards Sector 3, but we're still 8/10 up. On the time set by our teammate Isaac Hajar, so hopefully this is going to be a high 1 minute 30 as through the final couple of corners. Genuinely think the hard tyre hung on really, really well in Q1. That's probably why we were able to get the time that we did. But at 1:30.5, we go P9. It'll depend on the gap to the cars behind, whether that'll be good enough. Well, there we are then, heading into Q3 with 2 fresh sets of soft compound tyres here. I cannot complain about, especially on a sprint weekend. Both Ferraris ahead of both Mercedes, both McLarens, both Red Bulls. Finally, you get a little bit of interest as we went quicker than both Aston Martins. But Lance Stroll, haven't often seen him make Q3 this year. Not too sure what's happened to Williams this weekend. Both Albon and Colapinto are really struggling. I mean, Colapinto didn't even see Q2. We're getting ready then to start our first Q3 run. I have one goal and one goal only here in Q3. Get into the 1 minute 29s. I don't think we're going to be able to out-qualify any of your top 4 teams. So we just get that lap time on the board. I will be very, very happy. That's kind of the only real thing we can chase in sessions like this at the moment. I mean, obviously we want to try and beat Lance Stroll as well. But hopefully that's not going to be too difficult. We are up ever so slightly on the time I set in Q2 then, as Russell down in P6 on a 1:29.2 there. But Leclerc, he's really throwing it away this weekend. Fantastic qualifying pace in Q1 and Q2, but right when it matters in Q3, he's just not able to deliver right now. Load of understeer as we make our way through the final couple of corners, but we get it nice and tidy again through that final turn. Mash your foot to the floor, a 1:30.1. Again, we go P9. And there we go then. By the end of the session, I had a quick look through the times, and I just figured there was no real point in us trying to go for another run then. We may as well keep a set of soft compound tyres ready for the Grand Prix, because I don't think we were going to find another half a second against Oscar Piastri there. Half a second slower than him, an entire second quicker than Lance Stroll. We really do seem to be in no man's land towards the end of the year. Lando Norris, though, will claim pole position ahead of Max Verstappen. McLaren will lock out the second row, but 28 laps ahead of us. This one is going to get really, really interesting.
Here we are then in one of the fastest growing cities in the United States, the fabulous Austin in the great state of Texas. The circuit itself, 14 miles southeast of the city centre, has been home to the US Grand Prix since 2012, the latest in a long list of iconic tracks to have that honour. It's the Circuit of the Americas then, situated 14 miles outside of the great city of Austin. This is a 3.6 mile lap with 20 corners, 10 to the left and 10 to the right, and top speeds of around 200 miles per hour. Overtaking opportunities are available into turns 1 and 12, especially with that rear wing DRS wide open. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Lando Norris put in a fantastic lap yesterday, and he'll start from pole position. And Max Verstappen lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Gasly, Esteban Ocon, and Russell, Piastri, Tsunoda, Stroll, and Liam Lawson, Albon, Hadjar, Jack Crawford, and Behrman, Pepe Marti, Colapinto, Paul Aron, and Gabriel Bortoletto, Hülkenberg, Antonelli, Leclerc, and Jack Doohan rounds off the grid. Now it's almost time for lights out, so let's go down to the track.
Well, sat on the grid once more then, this time round up in P8, courtesy of Charles Leclerc's grid penalties. He basically needs a miracle. He needs George Russell to have a DNF somewhere towards the end of the year if he wants to keep his championship hopes alive. Because, yeah, George could leave here with about a 74-point lead and one hand on the World Championship trophy. 28 laps ahead of us. I think we're probably going to box one lap earlier off the mediums than the team are originally anticipating. But let's just see what we can do then. Ready on the grid, the 5 red lights are on here at the Circuit of the Americas, and it's lights out, and away we go then. Again, getting quite a lot of wheel spin on the launch. Lance Stroll there will immediately try and get around the outside up the hill in towards turn 1. So we would just try and hug the inside line though, and hopefully get the power down ahead of the Aston Martin. Lando Norris taking a leaf out of Max Verstappen book, and he's going to try and run away at the start of the Grand Prix as the Dutchman tried to go wheel to wheel with, I believe that was Pierre Gasly in the McLaren car, but not able to come out on top in that scenario. McLaren really have got themselves back as a proper threat towards the end of the season. It is fantastic to watch. I think Leclerc as well has made good progress up at the rear of the field. I would expect him to still score points in this race, but it is just a question of how many then, as looks like our racing battle with Oscar Piastri from the sprint race yesterday could be set to continue. Annoyingly now, I've got my main championship rival tucked up in the wheel tracks, Alexander Albon, trying to have a look down the inside in towards the heavy braking zone at the end of Sector 2. We'll give him a big old squeeze to the inside of the circuit, but we need to outscore him today and outscore him quite well here to make sure that obviously we're ahead of him by the end of the year. I believe if it were to finish like this, we would be 1 point behind as we leave Austin. There we go, Oscar Piastri again to the inside of Esteban Ocon on the run in towards turn 1, and surely this time around he's going to be able to pull off the move, which he will do. It's the Australian then up into P6. Good news is for me though, both of them now have lost the DRS as well, so they might be vulnerable, especially if they keep battling. We've got yellows, that's a McLaren now. Who's gone round then? That looks to be Carlos Sainz then, that has gone for a spin as well in this Grand Prix, so clearly a lot of errors coming out from drivers early on here, maybe struggling with the grip on the circuit. Esteban Ocon though has dropped away from Oscar Piastri, who seems to be a man on a mission early on in this GP, but we're just kind of picking up places by not doing a lot at the moment, which I'm not going to complain about, as Leclerc is already almost back inside your top 10. Again, he is another man that seems to be on a mission early on here. I mean, it is damage limitation against Russell today, but never say never to Charlie outscoring him.
Rain is forecast in just over 10 minutes time. Rain in 10 minutes.
Sorry? That was never on the horizon. Okay, apparently we are going to get rain then in this GP. That was never on the radar or anything, surely, on the race strategy here. And well, that certainly could potentially mix things up then as we get towards the pit stop window in this GP. Guess we might have to try and drag these medium tyres out a little bit longer, or gamble it and hope that the rain isn't that hard. Well, I'm not just going to jump out of the way and let Sainz through at this stage of the GP, but I don't think it's going to be worth a fight either, despite the fact we've had DRS off Esteban Ocon. I think, yeah, the Spaniard is just a little bit too quick in that McLaren car this weekend. As down the inside will go Carlos. I've got to be much more kind of careful about not losing time myself. But anyway, yeah, we're going to dive in then at the end of the next lap. These mediums are feeling pretty second-hand at this point, but not completely undrivable. Almost forgot that we need to pit in at the end of this lap then, so Ocon and Sainz trying to just go one lap longer in this GP. But just make sure we get the car slowed down nice and tidy into the pit lane then. We are the first car to dive in, I think, apart from one of the Saubers. But I think that's another thing that's screwing them over this year. They seem to be one of the only teams that can never make a one-stop happen. Hopefully we can get a clean, tidy stop. 2.5 seconds isn't bad going.
That was a fantastic stop, faster than we were expecting. Look after these tyres now, we want to finish the race on this compound.
Well, I'm hoping we shouldn't get overcut against Ocon and Sainz at this stage of the GP, but we need to make sure we have a quick outlap here as see just ahead of our teammate Isaac Hadjar. Maybe we can give him a little bit of DRS there, help him keep Pepe Marti at bay. But immediately, yeah, the grip on these hard tyres feeling fantastic. But look at the skies above, they just started to show a little bit of doom and gloom. I mean, look how quickly we've rocked up to the back of Liam Lawson then in this race. May as well make sure that we get the DRS on him, but why on earth are they all extending this medium stint so far? Surely, I don't believe they're going to be able to get to a wet period there, as almost running into the back of the young Kiwi to make our way out into the back straight.
Radar suggests some weather's going to hit in around 5 minutes' time, so stay on your toes. Okay, dries seem like the best tyre for now.
Well, Liam Lawson, they're trying to give me a bit of a squeeze, and well, there we go, Verstappen in. Finally, our first pitter in this GP, but I wonder if the AI are trying to stretch it out until the wet period. So we've really got to try and make an impact. Oh, come on. Oh, Colapinto's not in. Alex Albon must have dived in just in front of him then, so yeah, this is very, very weird, but at the moment it's probably benefiting us quite nicely as Leclerc, Albon and Carlos Sainz all into the pit lane. We will get around the outside of Franco up the hill into turn 1. But yeah, look at that. We've got about a 4-second buffer now ahead of Carlos Sainz. We won't keep that to the end of the GP, but it might give us the room we need ahead of Esteban. Oh, there you go. There's the rain. The rain has now started to fall here at the Circuit of the Americas then, with 10 laps remaining still. We are more than likely going to see a switch to the intermediates. Problem is, of course, where this was never on the relative, I've got no idea how heavy this rain is meant to fall towards the end of the GP. We'll try and stick with Oscar as long as I can, but I'd rather go one lap early onto intermediates than one lap too late. Oh, there goes Charles Leclerc down the inside as soon as I lap Gabriel Bortoletto. The Ferrari man will make the move happen there, and up then into P6 he will go.
The underbody's incurred some slight damage, but nothing too serious at the moment. Just be careful.
Not going to worry about that towards the end of the afternoon, but we are getting right towards the crossover period late on in the day, and I really don't know whether I want to try and gamble still on these dry compound tyres. It can be so difficult to kind of stay on the road towards the end, but I think the AI are probably going to go for it here. Surely I wouldn't be able to kind of make the time back up against Carlos Sainz towards the end. I think we've just got to try and hold station towards the end of the afternoon, unless the lap times continue to fall off. About to start then the final lap of the US Grand Prix, in a really interesting battle that I've been watching towards the end has actually been the one up at the front. Pierre Gasly and Max Verstappen have really closed in on Lando Norris in the dying stages here, but I think now they're going to be stuck battling each other towards the checkered flag. George Russell as well, his pace seems to have fallen apart right towards the end, and he might be vulnerable against his teammate Oscar Piastri. Surely, if you're Mercedes, you play the patience game here. Make sure that George continues to outscore Charles in the World Championship fight then. But Esteban Ocon, he's really struggled all weekend. Carlos Sainz obviously had that spin quite early on in the day as well, and ultimately that has allowed us once again to probably exceed expectations as we've made our way through the Grand Prix today. Played the strategy early on very, very well, as it looks like one of the Aston Martins is finally going to peel into the pit lane for a set of the intermediates, so I think we have reached the crossover point, but it is far too late to kind of make that worthwhile then towards the end. We really have just controlled this pace in the last few laps, just made sure that Sainz doesn't get a look in right towards the end of the GP there. But in towards the final few corners, it is going to be an important victory for Lando Norris today. If Charles Leclerc can't get back to Russell by the end of the season, the battle for P2 is looking absolutely phenomenal as more and more cars peeling into the pit lane. Well, Lando Norris is going to claim victory here today at the Circuit of the Americas in horrible, horrible conditions. You can definitely see it's time to make the switch to Inters because we're struggling to even keep the car on the road at the moment, but limping our way through the final couple of turns. A big handful of points to help us on a weekend where we will lose Yuki Tsunoda's services ready for next season. That's disappointing to see, but who on earth will he be replacing? Through the final corner, it is P7.
Here's the checkered flag. The fans rise to their feet. It's Lando Norris for victory.
Such an important victory at this stage of the season. Any points you can achieve to go towards the table is really going to mean a lot to the team. So well done as they prepare for the end of the season.
It's what they've all been racing towards, waiting for them. High above the pit lane is our podium. And for the lucky three, it's time to stand on it. He holds the trophy aloft, and why shouldn't he? A richly deserved win today for Lando Norris.
Well, there we are then. Lando Norris, after disappointment in the sprint race, he will claim glory in the main event here. Pretty certain he led basically every single lap of today's Grand Prix there, and a masterful drive to control it from the front. Pierre Gasly, though, finally gets that podium for McLaren just ahead of Max Verstappen. Oscar Piastri, controversially then, did get the jump on George Russell right at the end, so he will only outscore Charles Leclerc by 2 points here, and was very, very lucky to even beat the Monegasque man by the end. A fantastic recovery drive from Charles to go from 21st to 6th. We come through for P7 just ahead of Sainz and Esteban Ocon, and Alexander Albon picks up that final point as well. Just ahead of Lance Stroll and Kimi Antonelli. Liam Lawson, yeah, that late pit stop really was not the way to go for him. The same can be said for Isaac Hadjar, who came last of the drivers not to get lapped in today's Grand Prix. What does that do to our World Championship? Well, it means now Leclerc 51 back from Russell, but Lando Norris right there as well. So I think you can argue we've got a three-way fight now for the World Championship. Yuki Tsunoda now 2 points back ahead of Alexander Albon, so your top 10 is entirely covered by just 5 teams then late on this year. Any other movers further down the order? I don't believe so, because of course there was no real surprises regarding who scored this weekend. Constructors-wise, though, look at that. McLaren and Mercedes even and Ferrari tied now at the top of the table on 590 points apiece. So that is going to be a really interesting battle right the way through to the end of the campaign. Red Bull looking pretty safe in third. McLaren, ourselves, Williams and Aston Martin all looking pretty locked in. Haas could still get a pretty big result and maybe jump Alpine before the end of the year then. But thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure to leave a like, get yourself subscribed, and we'll be back very soon when Formula 1 returns ready for, I believe, the Mexico City Grand Prix.